Today, in our Black Wrestlers You Should Know series, where PPW recognizes and honors actual black wrestlers you should know, I can't think of any bigger star in the history of black wrestlers, in the history of our country, than the big cat, Ernie Ladd. Unbelievably beyond accomplished professional football player, and one can't help but think that the big cat Ernie Ladd's professional football background and professional sports experience just set him up in the perfect position, the proverbial catbird seat in the pro wrestling industry. This man was so over, he could basically do whatever he wanted and pick and choose, and was entitled to have an ego as large as he was, a mere 6'9" and 300 plus pounds, but he didn't. He was a businessman first and foremost, and he was a natural, and he listened and he retained, just like we used to do back in my day, to actually learn the craft. This guy was the first heel bad guy in pro wrestling that was a black man. It had never been done before that. Now that takes balls, because we're talking about a time when you can hear about it, and you've probably heard about it, where wrestlers were shot at. It happened at the amphitheater, where wrestlers were stabbed, where wrestlers were jumped, where wrestlers had to carry guns when they drove because of the heat that they had, and playing that part as hot as they could was what increased their paycheck. Now that being said, the other part about the big cat Ernie Ladd was when it was time to pass the torch for the betterment of the business and the enrichment of the next generation. This man was unbelievably unselfish. Just this morning alone, and I forgot all about these things, I watched Big Cat Ernie Ladd do the job for Kamala down in World Class to help build up the Kamala character, which again, another man we're going to honor this month. Then a man that we've already honored, a young Brickhouse Brown, and if you can see the size difference in that matchup between Brickhouse Brown and the Big Cat Ernie Ladd, and it made sense. Go ahead and go on YouTube and look for Ernie Ladd versus Brickhouse Brown. You're going to lose your minds. The absence of ego in this man was unbelievable. Need you guys to go and listen to Big Cat's Ernie Ladd's speech when he inducted Bobo Brazil into the World Wrestling Entertainment Hall of Fame, and listen to what this man says to the next generations. Unbelievable. You know, the other thing is, my first memories of the Big Cat Ernie Ladd when I was about 7 years old, a second grader, watching Bob Luce Wrestling from Indianapolis, Indiana on Channel 44. The Big Cat versus Dick the Bruiser. Dick the Bruiser to us was impervious. He was the one-man riot squad. He was the most dangerous man in professional wrestling. Let me tell you, they built it up so much with the promos, and basically Big Cat built it up so much that his gimmick at the time was the tape thumb. And during the match, when the Big Cat finally jammed that big thumb into the throat of Dick the Bruiser must have had an Alka-Seltzer in his mouth, because the slobber and the foam just ran, man. And we actually were afraid for Dick the Bruiser. I've never seen Dick the Bruiser sell like that before. And the two guys that Bruiser would sell for the most, because it was good for business, was Ox Baker, but number one, the Big Cat Ernie Ladd. The other thing about Ernie Ladd is he didn't stick to one territory. This man is well traveled, and anywhere he went, as a heel or a baby face, the people knew, and he drew. The gates were up. Incredible, incredible businessman, an incredible, incredible human being. And you can see, like I says, in that Hall of Fame speech, just how many thumbprints Ernie Ladd has out there. I don't think the business would be what it is today in a lot of parts of the country and for the black wrestler if it wasn't for the big cat Ernie Ladd. Now, the last thing I'll say, and you can bury me for this all you want, but I don't have the time or energy to do it. But the big rumor is that Bill Watts was a racist. Bill Watts was a homophobe. I'd like to see the actual definition or legal definition of what prejudice is, because the big cat Ernie Ladd was a part of Bill Watts's company, the Universal Wrestling Federation, which the Universal Wrestling Federation was at one point one of the best drawing companies in the world. It was one of the first, if not the first, wrestling organizations to syndicate on television. That being said, during the biggest success and the money-making years of that company, Big Cat Ernie Ladd was Bill Watts' right-hand man. Now, that being said, if Bill Watts was so racist, I don't know how he and Ernie could have worked together so closely. And that is not saying that whatever about Bill. What it's saying is that if he was a racist, how could Ernie Ladd have dealt with that and been so successful at the same time? The other thing is I've watched the Briscoe and Bradshaw podcast, and I watched episodes with guys like Bill Watts, and I've watched the Bill Watts or heard the Bill Watts episode so many times. And every time Ernie's name comes up, Bill just gets this big, dumb, kid-like grin on his face. The other thing I want to say is he also talks about when Bill and his wife would get together and have dinner with Ernie Ladd and Ernie's wife. He not only puts Ernie over, but he puts Ernie's wife over. To me, that just doesn't ring of actual, real prejudice. Anyway, hope you guys are enjoying this. Black wrestlers, you should know. Please note that this is being done without YouTube ads on it, YouTube commercials. Please help support Premier Pro Wrestling. Subscribe to our streaming service, Patreon. We're also on Pivot Share and Premier Pro Wrestling on Pro Wrestling Tees. Tomorrow, I'm going to be busy as hell, but I'll be able to get you guys one of these tomorrow. I hope you're enjoying them as much as I do. In the meantime, while I'm doing this, I'm learning about guys, things that I didn't know, and I thought I knew everything. I'm going to go ahead and put in the link the Big Cat Ernie Ladd Wikipedia, and from there, I suggest if you're a wrestler, if you're one of the guys I'm training, you honestly go to that Wikipedia page that I'm going to post here in the description and just fall down that rabbit hole as a learning experience. Because I'll tell you what, studying the Big Cat Ernie Ladd is going to do nothing but help you in today's industry climate. Thanks again, guys.